when you're in your 30s or your 40s, it's so easy to compare yourself to your neighbor, to do the scoreboard, and to try to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with everyone around you, and make these financial decisions that are constantly, okay, move up to the bigger house, because that's what you do. Move up to the bigger car, because that's what you do. It's this lifestyle creep that can get you. And pretty soon, we're training our kids that, okay, they can't live in a crappy single, one-room apartment like mom and dad did when they started. They have to start with $1 million house.
Yeah, those are tough.
And then they get themselves into bad financial position.
Welcome to the True Wealth Podcast, where happiness is more often found in the soul of someone's wealth rather than the size of it. Money, after all, is a tool. It's not the destination. Money is the fuel to advance your core values and your purpose. Join us as we share some inspiring stories, true wealth life lessons, and practical strategies to help you design a life of intention, generosity, and fulfillment. So we're going to talk today about one of the life stages called the Jugglers. Previously, we've looked at the launchers. We had a great episode with two associate wealth advisors who are in that stage of life. So we're going to talk about the Jugglers,
which I feel like is going to be a therapy session more than anything.
It is.
Me and you.
It is.
Well,
Good.
I remember that
therapy.
so vividly, and I'm so glad I'm out of that period. But you're going through life, and it is really short. I can attest to that. The song "Don't Blink." I mean, there's so many things about it. It seems like I just said I do, and all of a sudden, now I'm going to say I will.
Yeah.
Retire. It's wow, that happened just like that. But there's a interesting stage. So yeah, you got the repeaters, which is 0 to 10, which we've covered. You got the challengers, which is that wonderful 11 to 20. Then you've got the launchers who are now they're going to do it on their own. They've kind of moved out of the house. They're going to try it themselves. And then we get to this, all of a sudden you're a juggler. And what happens is you may have a child. I don't want to go through you guys' numbers, but you may have 1 through 7 or whatever we're at.
We have here.
But all of a sudden you've got multiple children, or maybe a new one on the way, but multiple children is where more it happens. Your one's taking somebody to choir practice, another one's meeting somebody to soccer. Then we got a basketball camp, a football camp. Yeah, you're already wiping your head. You got all these things going on. You're not even really with your spouse much anymore because you're meeting each other in the door. You're driving through a fast food. Now we're going to get back to physical health as well. You're driving through a fast food restaurant because you don't have time. And you don't have enough time to even think about financial issues, or, you're kind of you are experiencing a little bit of that true wealth moment because you're really at a wonderful time of life. I'm telling you, you guys are at a wonderful time.
So we've been told.
Yes, I think that's right.
So
Pretty sure that's right.
now that you find yourself at a juggler status, what is the one thing that shocks you or that surprises you from, I'll just leave it to that. This is a therapy session. Welcome. Tell me what do you experience as a juggler?
In all honesty, the thing that stresses me out the most is I would say by and large I'm wired to be an all in kind of guy. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to jump all in and I'm just going to do it. And this stage of life isn't real conducive to that.
Well, you're adhering to somebody else's schedule too. I mean,
yeah,
right. There's luck control.
Right. But it's but I mean, so you got to leave work early to go help at home with the kids and whatnot. And so there's days where you're going, well, geez, I mean, am I doing everything that I need to at work, or am I leaving something on the table there? Meanwhile, at home, they're going, oh, it'd be nice to have him around a little more because my wife is going, I'm doing this, getting the kids everywhere. And you almost just feel like you're teetering in this stage of where do I go? So like, that's probably the biggest challenge.
The worst part, I had a 45-minute drive when I was in that stage. I lived in Rock Valley and was working in Sioux Falls, had kids going to all these events. And the worst feeling was I wasn't where I needed. I was always where I didn't want to be. So when I was at home, thought, I got to get to work. And when I'm at work, I'm thinking, I got to get home. And I'm never really fully engaged into that part of life.
Right.
It was really a awesome, terrible time.
Yeah.
If I can say it that way. And the worst part was I knew I needed to be addressing certain other financial issues. I didn't have the time.
Yep.
I just thought, well, and then the other thing that happens is at that point in life, your career also is starting to take off. So now you got more demands, promotions, and I got to justify the promotion. You got all those things going on. That can be a really challenging time of life.
Right. Yep.
And in the middle of it, you get perspective from your youngest child who's who asks you every morning, you have to go to work again?
Yeah.
You're never home, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm going, I feel like I'm trying to balance this the best I can. I'm home more than the other dads. But from her perspective, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, you should hear what my kids tell me.
Right. But there's this constant battle. There's this constant tug of war between different responsibilities, and we don't have to say yes to everything. But we want to say yes to things that we think are gonna benefit our kids greatly, and we're willing to sacrifice to do that. But it doesn't make it easier.
Well, what's really fascinating, and I just think God's got to have an incredible sense of humor, because just when you think you've got it figured out, He puts a repeater in your life, and He puts a challenger in your life, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, and quite frankly, if you haven't gotten that piece right, you're really distracted as you're that launcher, and then you're moving into the juggler, really, and you're past that. So we really should have had this conversation. I hope everybody goes and listens to the previous episodes, because getting that right frees you up to kind of go through autopilot a little bit through the juggler. That's not the time to make these big earthy decisions about we're going to do all these things. You're really trying to do damage control financially. Yeah, really. If that's
the other hard part is that, it's also a stage where you kind of mentioned, I mean, a lot of people are kind of hitting the ground and really hitting kind of the peak of their earning years and their careers and all those things. And so you start to get this keeping up with the Joneses mentality. Well, they have, this size of house, and they drive that kind of car, and they, and all of a sudden it's like, well, boy, you start to kind of question everything that you're doing, and questioning whether you're doing it right, and feeling like this stress of, are we as far along as we should be? Am I going to have to work forever? It's all the questions that people come to us with. And I think, like you said, if you've laid some sort of solid groundwork, you can enter this stage with some peace of mind, going, you know what, we're choosing at this stage of our life to invest in the kids in this way. For us, it's our kids find a lot of joy in travel sports, and we could do 5 episodes on my issues with the youth sports culture, but we invest a lot into those experiences, and we wouldn't have to. I could be way further along in terms of our financial picture, if we would choose not to. But I think that comes at a cost as well. The experiences that they're having
back to choice
are life-changing for them in ways, and they give us unique family experiences too. So when people come to us and are worried about those aspects, to some extent, it goes back to a story you shared a few episodes ago about your clients, where you told them that they should hire a bookkeeper as opposed to, right away, just to help their marriage or whatever. To give people the okay to say, it's okay if you're not saving every dime that you earn at this stage of your life. That is okay. And to be able to put some context around it through the financial planning software and things like that we have, to kind of show them, even, hey, if you take the next 10 years while you're raising your kids, and you're just able to kind of trudge along and kind of
get the match in your 401k,
match in your 401k, and just kind of do those things. And when the kids are out of the house, we're going to be at a point where we're going to be able to do some of these things. You're going to be okay. And just to show them and to give them kind of that relief to kind of go, okay, all right, at least I know that we're not setting ourselves up for disaster.
I think the number one goal is to not mortgage yourself during that state. I mean, or over leverage yourself by putting way too much on debt cards, which is,
Yeah,
we'll cover that
absolutely.
too. I call them not credit cards, but don't put too much on the debt cards. Being responsible, that goes back to that as well, or on this True Wealth journey. Personal prosperity, that's kind of not the goal during this stage. It's being personally responsible. You're not only trying to get it right yourself, you're trying to teach those that you're the schedule you're trying to juggle with and for, by trying to get them in good money concepts. That's a challenging time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one of the things I think, grace is the word that comes to mind.
There you go.
And not grace with necessarily everyone else, but grace with yourself for you jugglers. I think this age 31 to 45 demographic is like you said, juggling multiple things at multiple times, and also beating themselves up about how they've fallen behind. Maybe I didn't start with my kid when they were 5 and didn't start a 529 plan. Maybe I haven't done a good job of training them with finances. I'm screwing everything up. I'm trying to work more. And so now my kids miss me more. And then I go to my kids' stuff and then work misses me. And I feel like no matter where I turn, I'm failing. So this is the counseling session right here. So this might just be me, but I have a feeling that a lot of other jugglers find themselves in the same position, where they don't extend themselves enough grace and don't look at the other side of the coin, which is, this is not only the most busy time that you have, it's the most expensive time you're going to have.
Yeah.
Your expenses during retirement will probably be less, or at least different, than your expenses during this period. The more kids you have, the more clothes you have, the more activities, all of these additional expenses will drop off at some point if we train our kids well and they don't live with us forever.
Yeah.
And so extending some grace towards yourself and your spouse that, hey, we don't have to look at the Joneses next to us. We don't have to look at the scoreboard next to us and say, hey, we're not quite keeping up. We can be doing what God's called us to do, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, from our perspective, we haven't signed our kids up for all of the travel sports and that sort of thing. And it feels like whether you sign your kids up or don't sign your kids up, there is a, am I screwing this up? Question that you constantly go, gosh, I just want to do what's best for our kids, but I'm not sure that I am.
Well, there's the other thing that's really changed culturally. So I consider it an honor, but my wife and I got married by choice at a very young age. So I
appreciate.
Thanks for clarifying. By choice.
We did. I mean,
I was wondering.
I met her when we moved to Michigan.
You both chose.
She was still a senior in high school, and we knew we were going to get married, but we had to wait till she graduated from high school. Then we kind of thought, well, we better wait a little bit of time how birthdays are. So she was just getting into that, you know, barely 19. I was 20. So we had kids earlier in the life cycle as well. Now you have some people who don't get into a relationship or develop a family until they're in their 30s. So now that juggler age for them is even at a later point in time, which is really a hard cultural shift to try to deal with. Now, for me, you know, my life aspiration when I started out was I owned a clothing business. That's how I was going to start. I eventually lost that clothing business, which is why True Wealth is so important to me. We'll unpack that too in another episode. But the interesting thing was going through that financial time, we had two families, so to speak. We had 2 children, and we had a whole slew of miscarriages, and then we had 2 more children. But we were in a different spot financially, and I can tell you that how we raised the first 2 when we were going through really tough time financially versus how we raised the second 2 a little bit 8 years later when we were in a better financial position, I can directly see the impact of their choices on how they choose money based on the choices we kind of made with and for them. So, for example, my younger 2, we put them on because it was more of putting ourselves on a budget to them, because we went on an envelope process where we had them on a fixed income stream, and if they needed it, they bought their clothes out of their envelopes, and we gave them cash to do that. So they really learned budgeting in a weird way, where the older 2 was much more, we'll just take care of that for you. Well, fortunately they've come around, but I can see originally and initially, and when my older 2 were in sports, you didn't have it. That's changed. By the time my younger ones were there, you know, if you wanted to be on any team at all, you had to start in 2nd grade. And I was like, whoa, when did this come about? So not only are people hitting jugglers at a later stage of life, you're raising kids, and making sure we want to give them good financial concepts as well. So the jugglers, kudos to you guys. I mean, that's a tough time.
Well, but
You want to get through it, but I know you guys have had good plans prior to getting there, which helps.
but you're juggling. Part of what you're juggling too, though, is is just survival of your spouse and you getting through this phase of
Right.
life, but also like you just mentioned, the responsibility of trying to build solid principles and foundations in your kids' lives as well. And so being so cognizant of the decisions that we're making in this phase of our life are gonna make lifetime
Right.
lifetime impacts for them over the years too. And I think that's where you go back to this whole conversation of stewardship and true wealth, and I think like comparison is the thief of joy,
Yeah.
right? And I think that probably, if the juggler has to process one thing from this episode or in their own life, it's that
Yep.
comparison is the thief of joy.
Yep.
That ultimately what you need to do is take time processing what you are called to in your life, and to be okay with that, and to process what stewardship looks like for your life and the choices that you want to make. And then whatever decisions you decide to make in that, you can do with confidence, and you can do with joy.
Right.
But yeah, that comparison deal is it can be nasty.
That
Like
reminds
I-
me.
Go ahead.
That reminds me of a story Ron Blue shares in the Certified Kingdom Advisor training. He talks about a client of his who lived in a multi-million-dollar home, and so as a person who was a Christian who lived in a multi-million-dollar home, this individual struggled with: is it okay for me to see that there are people starving in the world, and I'm living in this multi-million-dollar home? And Ron Blue's response to that was really fascinating. He said, we need to make sure that when we're making financial decisions, the decision isn't about how big is the house, like how much is God okay with me living in,
Yeah.
or spending, or having,
Right.
or whatever. He challenged the person to say, basically, your lifestyle choices are going to have a deep impact on your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that lifestyle that you're setting up is creating a baseline for your kids.
Right.
So think about what kind of a house you want to live in, what kind of car you want to drive before you get into this catching up with the Joneses and keeping up with the
Right.
Joneses as a juggler,
Yep.
and going, well, gosh, so-and-so is 3 years younger than me and they have twice as big a house, and they're really doing it. I better
Right.
get a second job and miss out on all this time with my kids. And pretty soon the kids are gone, and now I have a bigger house and I have nobody to enjoy it with.
Right.
So his challenge to this man was to say, okay, we need to relook at our financial purchases and say, if I live in a multi-million-dollar house, but my oldest daughter falls in love with a teacher who coaches, who doesn't make a lot of money, I've just set her up to have to choose between love and lifestyle. And so it's something I need to ask myself: what kind of lifestyle do I want to live, so that I'm not setting my kids up to expect this baseline lifestyle
Right.
that is, an extremely expensive car or a really nice house. I'm not saying that's bad. I just thought the question that Ron brought up was amazing. And I think this age category, when you're in your 30s or your 40s, it's so easy to compare yourself to your neighbor, to do
Yep.
the scoreboard, and to try to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with everyone around you, and make these financial decisions that are constantly, okay, move up to the bigger house,
Right.
because that's what you do.
Right.
Move up to the bigger car, because that's what you do. It's this lifestyle creep that can get you. And pretty soon we're training our kids that, okay, they can't live in a crappy single, one-room apartment like mom and dad did when they started.
Right.
They have to start with $1 million house.
Yeah. Those are tough.
And then they get themselves into bad financial position.
Well, you guys are just shedding a lot of light on this. Clearly, we need more time to go through the jugglers, which we'll come back to. I think we're going to need to bring in some other outside guests as well. I want to unpack this a little bit further. Main takeaways: control debt. And make sure you're being responsible. Sit down with each other in between your juggles and say, what do we want for the kids? What things can we budget it out? Don't mortgage it. Don't leverage and get yourself into a bigger hole through that process. But you also need to enjoy that moment, spend times and lay that out. Now, again, if you've been saving because you follow the principles right as a launcher, you probably should already have good spending habits in place, and you have accumulated assets to those goals, which frees you up a little bit during the juggler time. So watching debt, controlling that, revisiting the plan, you get a little bit in autopilot, enjoy this experience. Anything else?
Well, I guess because this is a therapy session, as we've established, and you're way beyond the juggler stage. Just kidding. You're not that far beyond.
No.
What would be if you look at our lives every day, so just take us too. But anybody in this stage of life, if you look back, what would be your one, and maybe you covered it a little bit just now, but what would be your one piece of advice that you would give people in our stage of life?
Having parameters, having, with the finances side, it would have been easy to just say we're doing it all. Kind of going, leaping off a little bit of your conversation, Ryan. Having those expectations is what's our goals for our kids? What's our children's goals?
Mm-hmm.
I had one who we traveled the country going through, actually the state of Iowa, I think. But we travel going to every basketball opportunity we can. He gets to be this was the biggest blow to me. He gets to be a freshman in college, and he calls one day and says, "Dad, do I have to do this?" And I'm thinking, absolutely you do.
Yeah.
I'm living. No,
That's right.
I paid for all the, yeah, look at all the money we spent. He said, I'm 10 hours in a gym. They tell me when to eat, what I want to do. I want to be a doctor. I'd rather spend my time on education purpose. Now, do I regret? No, we had some great times doing that. But again, that was not his focus. He enjoyed the sport, but he knew I'm not going to be a professional athlete. Now I step back and go, man, if we'd have put some of that money away, we wouldn't have, college would have been a lot simpler. We did, but I could have put more away just because of the cost on that. But I had to give him the freedom to say, no, you don't have to do that. It's, you should be doing what's important and passionate to you. So that's having that conversation with your kids and setting expectations. You learn so much through sports. So I'm not throwing a blanket on that. I'm so glad my kids went through that. But I also knew they had the expectations of
margin.
You may not be wearing the number 23 for the Chicago Bulls with my athletic
Right.
infusion of this process. But no, I think parameters, conversation, talk, between spouses. Don't just meet each other in the door, spend time
and kids,
just setting expectations. It's an awesome time. You got to enjoy every minute of that. Don't throw in the towel. That's why it's also key moments to not leverage it. Stay focused on still what you're trying to accomplish, what your purpose is. That's when that clarity becomes more important than ever. Go back to your statement of financial purpose, look at that and say, why are we doing this? And if that stays in focus, you're in good shape. So we'll come back and address this more. Next time we're going to start talking about the builders, which is, you got to be doing that once you get through the jugglers.
Yeah.
So that's that next lifetime. So again, hey, this is fun. I enjoyed always doing this. You guys bring so many good insights. Thank you to all listeners and viewers for joining us in today's episode of the True Wealth Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, again, as always, we encourage you to subscribe, share it with a friend so we can reach more people who want to experience a life confidently enjoyed. Feel free to share your thoughts. If you have questions, additional questions, or topics you'd like us to dig deeper into, send those questions to us at info@pinnaclewealth.com, and we'll keep building out more episodes because this will make a difference. Appreciate it. We'll be back soon. The opinions voiced in today's True Wealth Podcast with Kevin Ingvers, Nick Omlet, and Ryan Ovenden are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendation by any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing.